Here I am back again. And now we're coming to one of the main moments of our event here, this virtual conference. And this is, again, a speaker who is raising the bar for Latinas in business. And I am absolutely grateful to her for her presence here. It is my pleasure and honor now to introduce our main keynote speaker for the evening, Alice Rodriguez. Alice is the chairwoman of the board of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And I reached out to Alice with the hope that she would respond. And not only she did, but she has shown great support to our summit. And thank you so much, Alice. Let me introduce you for a minute. Alice has over 30 years of extensive banking experience with JP Morgan Chase and its predecessors. She has held executive positions in business banking, consumer banking, and wealth management. Her most current role is head of JPMC Community Impact Organization. She provides strategic counsel and serves as an integral leadership role in community engagement initiatives and localization strategies. We met many years ago at New America Alliance when you were a board member. And she still remembered me. So I was very, very grateful. Alice, take it away.
Thank you, Susana. And I really appreciate the opportunity to spend some time. And I really enjoyed listening to the panel that you just had. That was very, very insightful. And so again, congratulations on the wonderful summit and all the wonderful content that you're providing to Latina entrepreneurs. It's so important. So what I'd like to do in our time together is really cover three things. The first is just provide everyone with some insights and some lessons that I learned from my Shiro. The second is really to share with you my how optimistic I am about the economic recovery, and more importantly, how Latinos are going to be playing a very critical role, including Latinas, of course. And then third, just share with you some of the things I'm working on, both as the chairwoman of the United States Hispanic Chamber, as well as in my job at JP Morgan Chase as head of community impact. So I once saw a quote that said, "Behind every great woman is another great woman." And that really resonated with me because there's no doubt that my mother, Alicia Nunez Ramirez, had the most impact on my life. You know, this was a woman who came to this country when she was 15 years old, unfortunately, due to some circumstances that were, a little tragic. So my grandfather died when she was 12 years old, and my mother came from a family of 12. She was born and raised in Soledad, Veracruz. And my grandmother decided after a while that it was very difficult for her to really raise all of these children by herself. And so she sent her children away to go live with other family in order for her to get her ranch, in order, etc. So my mother ended up living with an aunt in Brownsville, Texas. And as she met my father, who was from the US, and they started their family. And as I was growing up, it was just amazing to see how my mother really overcame lots of adversity. She had this very strong ability to never get flustered, a trait that I feel like I really was able to learn from her. And I really believe that my mother was completely ahead of her time. In other words, she was a strong, independent Latina that just did not take, no for an answer. And, as I reflect back on all of the life lessons that she taught me, I really recognize that I stand on her shoulders. She came here with, at best, a middle school education, but that didn't stop her from continuing to network and learn. And in fact, she ended up getting her GED when she was in her mid-50s. But she taught me everything from, how important familia is, values, faith, how to give back, how to create your own success and take risk. And I felt like she was always, just figuring out how to get over those barriers, whether it was something that she had to get over, under, around, she was going to figure it out. And I would say one of the most important lessons that she taught me was, you know what, life is not fair. So you can't sit there and sulk when things don't go your way. You have to figure out how to get back on, the horse, so to speak, and figure out what you need to do in order to change the path that you're currently on. And I've never forgotten that, because I knew that she had overcome lots of adversity in her life. And there was so much more that I was afforded, that certainly those things that came into my life as barriers, I could overcome. And so when I think about, my mom, and I think about Latinas today, Latinas are making such an impact in this country. According to a Nielsen report, with every generation, Latinas are making great strides when it comes to education. So for Latinas that are 50 or older, and that's unfortunately the camp that I'm in, 13% of Latinas have a bachelor's degree. If you are a Latina that is between 35 and 49, that number then goes up to 18%. And if you're a Latina between 25 and 35, then that number is 19%. And I know this is true in my own life. So my grandmother did not read or write. My mother, as I just mentioned, had at best a 7th grade education. I was the first one in my family to graduate from college. And 2 days ago, my youngest daughter, who's now 29, graduated from her 3 years in residency at Johns Hopkins. So I'm a real example of those statistics on the great strides that Latinas are making. And it's just not the educational attainment. It's also what we see in politics. And there's no question that Latinas are making a very big impact in entrepreneurship. In fact, I would say it's a real boom. And I know that's all the things that you guys have been talking about today. How do you really harness that economic power that Latinos and Latinas are bringing to the table? So I want to share with you some really important statistics that, to be quite honest, I don't hear a lot of people talking about today, certainly not in the media. But I think everybody knows that we have, 61 million Latinos in this country and growing very rapidly. In fact, in 20 years, that number grows to about 86, 87 million. And in 40 years, it grows to 111 million. And the economic activity that Latinos are providing to this country is significant. It's $2.6 trillion, in economic activity, or what we would consider GDP, okay? If you just took all of that economic activity and pulled it out, and we said Latinos are their own country, it would be the 8th largest in the world, larger than Italy, larger than South Korea, larger than Brazil. What's really impressive is, according to the Latino Donor Collaborative report, and if you haven't seen their 2020 report, it's extremely insightful. And again, it's what really gets me excited about the contribution and, to be honest, the speedy recovery that Latinos are going to provide to this country. But the labor participation for Latinos has been extremely strong. So if you look at that participation since the last recession in 2008, 78% of the growth has come from Latinos. And in fact, if you just look at 2019 labor participation, 67% came from Latinos, and that was 5 percentage points higher than any other group. So here's a really important one that I just want you to soak in. So according to one of the Federal Reserve economists, there is a large number of baby boomers that are retiring every month. In fact, it will begin to really accelerate in 2022. That's just next year, okay? 350,000, mostly non-Latino baby boomers will retire every month and are retiring every month, okay? 350,000. That's very significant. And, if you were a country that, didn't know where your population growth was going to come from, you would be extremely worried, because that's a huge loss, right, to the labor force and to your overall economic activity or GDP. Well, the good news is I just, finished sharing with you what the growth rates are for the Latino population. And more importantly, just what's happening with labor participation, most recently. And so this is where I get super optimistic about, the real economic power that Latinos have, and how we just all need to have the right ecosystem to harness that power for prosperity for everyone. And the good news is that as we look at Latino-owned businesses in this country, there are 5 million thus far and growing. And Latinas are growing 6 times faster than the overall average. Latino-owned businesses in general grow 3 times faster than non-Latino, but then the Latinas are growing 6 times faster. So again, just really supporting the need to provide the right access to Latinas and for capital, the right access and networks, so that they're getting those procurement opportunities, and just a real opportunity for all of us to figure out, again, how do we harness all of this? Which brings me then to what I am doing at the U.S. Hispanic Chamber and at JP Morgan Chase as the head of community impact. At the Chamber, we see this economic power and we know that it's real. And so we are working very hard on what we call the 3 C's. The first being capital, of course, and we recognize that our Latinos and our Latina-owned businesses really need to have that access to capital. So the work that we're doing with the administration, with banks, with CDFIs and MDIs is extremely critical, so that we're providing that access to our Latina-owned businesses. The second C is really, how I think about connections, and more importantly, procurement opportunities. So I don't have to tell this group how many organizations out there are very focused on really engaging minority suppliers. And this is a real opportunity to have all of you prepared to be able to do business at a larger level. And so the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is really, providing those venues and those introductions, so that those procurement opportunities are available at the federal level, at the local level, and obviously at the corporate level. And the third C is really around just capacity building. So we're very blessed to have, more than 250 local affiliate chambers that we work with very closely every day. And we recognize that not every chamber has the same capabilities. So our ability to do capacity building with them has been very critical. And that includes, more training, more webinars, more content, et cetera. And so as we think about those 3 C's, we feel like they are the right things for us to focus on to really harness that economic power. At JP Morgan Chase, I've had, as Susana said, a very long career. But what I'm doing today, to be honest, is one of the most impactful assignments I've ever had. So as I am leading the $30 billion commitment that we made last October to advance racial equity, specifically for Blacks and Latinos, both on the consumer side as well as on the business side, this is where I get the opportunity to make sure that we are really bringing the power of JP Morgan Chase to our local communities, and that we're helping, particularly as we think about, minority small business owners, how we can help with that mentoring, with that coaching, with that advice and guidance as Latinas are growing their business. And so we're very excited about the programs that we've put in place. And more importantly, we believe this 5-year commitment that we made is really going to be an opportunity to provide more access to many Latina-owned businesses in this country. So as I close on my comments here, I want to leave you guys with just a few takeaways here that I think are extremely important as you are just digesting all of the great content that you have received today. The first is, really take care of your financial health. As I have, had clients over, the decades that I've been in banking, or just my friends that are entrepreneurs, sometimes, quite candidly, I'm surprised that they're not really in tune with, just what their credit score is or what their financials look like. And I think as I was listening to the panel before, one of the gentlemen was talking about, data. And I thought that was important, but knowing the details of your business and really understanding your own credit and where you are from just, a debt to income perspective is really important. So I really encourage you to really spend the time, think about it like maybe once a quarter, really sitting down and understanding what that credit score looks like and getting the necessary help, because the good news is there's lots of resources out there to help with that. The second is really, you got to learn to really love a lot of paperwork. And I know I'm probably preaching to the choir, but again, I just know as a woman in business, and with most things, there's just so much that you have to keep up with, so much that you have to stay in current with, and that normally involves just a lot of paperwork. So if you don't like paperwork, you're just going to have to get over it and learn to love it. The next one is really, have the right ecosystem. In other words, ensure that you've got the right, CPA, that you have an accountant, that you have a lawyer, that you have a banker, and more importantly, that you have a relationship with a banker. That's so critical. And I think we all recognize, particularly as we were going through this pandemic, how critical that was in order to get the resources that were out there and available to everybody. That relationship is super, super important. So that would be a critical one. I would say, which you guys are doing today as well, network. When I got the request from Susanna to join you guys this afternoon, there was no question that I remembered who she was. And even though, we all tend to go different paths at times and we have different journeys, I've always felt like it's critically important to keep up with the people that, you meet, understanding what their background is, because you never know when you're going to need that person. And more importantly, even if that person can't help you, they can always connect you to the right person that perhaps can help you. So that networking piece is critically important. I would say the very last thing, because I, to be honest with you, have been a little guilty of this, is more important than anything else is take care of yourself. I think as Latinas, as women, we want to do it all. And to be honest, I really believe in my heart that God gave women like this very special DNA to be able to have a lot of capacity to do a lot of things. But the reality is we're just as human as everybody else. And if we don't slow down and really take care of ourselves physically, mentally, we're not going to do anyone any good. And we're certainly not going to do our business or our professional lives any good if we break down. So take that time. Everybody has a different way that they do it. Some people meditate, some people exercise, some people just don't do anything. Pick whatever works for you, but more importantly, take care of yourself.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you so, so much. I'm going to start my video here. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. I really appreciate you and everything that you're working on and what the organization is focused on.
Great. Thank you, Alice. We are doing this out of a work of love, really. And as I said, my board and I, we don't take a penny from this organization. All gets reinvested in supporting all the organization members. So thank you again. And yes,
Thank you, Susanna.
sure.